So, Bob drawled, scratching his beard. You want to build a what now? I spread out my blueprints, pointing to the various slides, flumes, and splash zones. A water park, I said, grinning. Right here, in my backyard. Bob's eyes widened. You're kidding, right? Nope, I said, popping the P. Completely serious. And it's gotta be epic. Think HOA annihilating levels of awesome. Bob let out a low whistle. You're one crazy son of a gun, he said, a grin spreading across his face. I like it. Let's do this. And with that, Operation Backyard Water Park was officially underway. Good morning, Mr. Henderson, I'd say, trying to be polite. Humph, he'd grunt, scowling at my perfectly trimmed hedges. Those bushes are 2 inches too tall. See that they're rectified by tomorrow, or I'll report you. Oh, and Mrs. Johnson, I'd add. Lovely day, isn't it? Indeed, she'd reply, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Did you hear about the Smiths' new hot tub? Apparently it's causing quite a stir. Yeah, this was the crew I was up against. A formidable bunch, to say the least. But little did they know, they were about to awaken a sleeping giant. A giant with a thirst for revenge and a love of water slides. The Homeowners Association, the self-proclaimed guardians of good taste and aesthetic harmony. They descended upon my peaceful neighborhood like a flock of pigeons on a freshly baked loaf of bread. These weren't your average, run-of-the-mill HOA folks, either. Oh no, this was a special breed. They patrolled the streets with the vigilance of prison guards, their eyes scanning for any violation of the sacred rulebook. And that rulebook, let me tell you, it was thicker than a dictionary, filled with more rules and regulations than the IRS tax code. All right, so, armed with my blueprints and a healthy dose of optimism, okay, maybe a little naivete too, I submitted my pool proposal to the HOA. I envisioned a beautiful oasis, shimmering in the sunlight, a perfect escape from the summer heat. I even included a detailed landscaping plan with carefully selected plants and a charming little waterfall. But my dreams were quickly shattered. The rejection arrived faster than you can say HOA power trip. Their reasons? Vague and utterly ridiculous. It doesn't maintain the aesthetic harmony of the community, they claimed. Aesthetic harmony? I scoffed. Have they seen Mr. Henderson's front lawn? It looks like a gnome graveyard. Excessive water usage, they argued. Excessive? I countered. Have they seen Mrs. Johnson's sprinkler system? It's practically creating a rainforest in her backyard. Undeterred, I attempted to negotiate. I offered to make the pool smaller, to blend it seamlessly into the landscape, even to host a community swim day to appease the masses. But Karen McGill, the HOA queen bee, was having none of it. This is a family-friendly neighborhood, she declared, her voice dripping with disdain. We can't have unsightly distractions lowering property values. Unsightly distractions? I thought, my blood starting to boil. Lady, your collection of ceramic frogs is an affront to good taste, but I kept my cool. Karen, I said, forcing a smile, this pool would be an asset to the community. It would provide a place for families to gather, for kids to play, for everyone to cool off on those scorching summer days. We appreciate your enthusiasm, she replied, her smile as fake as her tan. But the answer is still no. We must maintain the integrity of our community. Integrity? I muttered under my breath. More like rigidity. That's when I snapped. If they didn't want a pool, fine. I'd give them something much, much worse. All right, time to unleash my inner lawyer. I grabbed that monstrous HOA rulebook, the one that was practically begging to be used as a doorstop, and I started digging. And by digging, I mean scouring every page, every clause, every ridiculously specific rule about lawn gnome height and acceptable mailbox colors. Hours turned into days, and my eyes started to blur. But I was determined. I knew there had to be a loophole, a crack in the HOA's ironclad armor. And then, eureka! Buried deep within the document, nestled between a rule about fence heights and another about acceptable bird feeder designs, I found it. The golden ticket. The key to my backyard freedom. There was absolutely nothing in the rulebook about water-based landscaping projects, nothing about backyard entertainment, nothing about water parks. A mischievous grin spread across my face. "Oh, Karen," I whispered, "you've just made a very big mistake." I unleashed my inner mad scientist, the one who used to build elaborate Lego castles and design Rube Goldberg machines in my spare time. I sketched, I calculated, I dreamed. And slowly but surely, the most epic backyard water park the world had ever seen began to take shape on paper. This wasn't just about a pool anymore. This was about revenge. This was about showing the HOA that they couldn't control my backyard, my happiness, my right to have a little fun. And let's be honest, it was also about giving Karen McGill a giant, soaking wet headache. All right, time to bring in the big guns. I contacted a contractor, a guy named Bob who looked like he'd wrestled a few alligators in his time, and probably won. "So," Bob drawled, scratching his beard, "you want to build a what now?" I spread out my blueprints, pointing to the various slides, flumes, and splash zones. "A water park," I said, grinning. "Right here, in my backyard." Bob's eyes widened. "You're kidding, right?" "Nope," I said, popping the P. "Completely serious, and it's gotta be epic. Think HOA annihilating levels of awesome." Bob let out a low whistle. "You're one crazy son of a gun," he said, a grin spreading across his face. "I like it. Let's do this." And with that, Operation Backyard Water Park was officially underway. The next few weeks were a symphony of construction chaos. Trucks rumbled down the street, delivering massive loads of fiberglass, steel, and concrete. Bulldozers roared at the crack of dawn, their engines shaking the neighborhood awake, and the sound of jackhammers echoed through the night, driving the HOA board members to the brink of madness. My neighbors, bless their curious hearts, couldn't help but stare. "What in the world is he building back there?" they whispered, their eyes wide with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Karen McGill, of course, was in full panic mode. She'd show up at my doorstep every other day, clipboard in hand, her face a mask of disapproval. "Sir," she'd say, her voice trembling with indignation, "what exactly is going on here? This is not what we envisioned for our community." I'd smile innocently. "Oh, just a little landscaping project, Karen. You know, sprucing things up a bit. Totally within the HOA guidelines." She'd squint at the massive steel structures rising from the ground, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. But without a written rule to stop me, she was powerless. The absurdity of the situation reached peak levels when a crane arrived to install the giant water slide. It towered over the fence, visible from every corner of the neighborhood. It was like a giant middle finger to the HOA, a monument to my defiance. And Karen? Well, let's just say she nearly fainted. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gather round and feast your eyes on the ultimate backyard water park. Forget your inflatable kiddie pools and those sad plastic slip-and-slides. This, my friends, is the real deal." First up, we've got the Colossus of Slides. This bad boy towers over the fence, a multi-story behemoth of twists, turns, and sheer exhilarating drops. It's visible from practically every corner of the neighborhood, a giant, colorful beacon of fun and HOA defiance. Next, we've got the Lazy River of Dreams. This meandering waterway circles the backyard, inviting you to grab an inflatable donut and drift away on a current of pure relaxation. It's like a mini vacation right in your own backyard. And for those who crave a little excitement, there's the Wave Pool of Wonder. This ain't your grandma's wave pool, folks. We're talking artificial surf, crashing waves, the whole shebang. It's like having a mini ocean in your backyard without the sharks and the seaweed. But wait, there's more. The whole place is decked out with synchronized LED lights that change color to the beat of the music. And speaking of music, we've got a booming sound system pumping out the hottest summer jams. It's like a backyard rave, but with less questionable substances and more sunscreen. And if all that excitement makes you hungry, no worries. We've got the snack shack of sustenance, serving up all your favorite treats. Think hot dogs, popcorn, snow cones, and those giant pretzels that are bigger than your head. Step right up, folks, I yelled, donning my official snack vendor hat. Get your ice-cold lemonade, your sugary delights, your fuel for the fun. The HOA? Oh, they're somewhere in the distance, probably huddled in a corner, rocking back and forth and muttering about property values and community standards. But who cares? The party's just getting started. Okay, remember Karen McGill? The HOA queen bee with the permatan and the condescending smile? Well, let's just say her reaction to my backyard water park was nothing short of epic. Imagine this. Karen, decked out in her tennis whites and clutching her clipboard like a shield, marches over to my property, ready to unleash a torrent of HOA fury. But then she sees it. The colossus of slides, the lazy river of dreams, the wave pool of wonder, all bathed in the glorious glow of 1,000 LED lights. Her jaw drops, her eyes widen, her perfectly coiffed hair practically stands on end. She looks like she's just witnessed a unicorn riding a roller coaster while juggling flaming torches. What in the name of HOA regulations is this? She sputters, her voice cracking with disbelief. I grin. Welcome to my humble abode, Karen. Enjoy the show. She sputters some more, trying to form coherent sentences, but it's no use. She's speechless, defeated, utterly and completely outmatched. The other HOA board members aren't faring much better. Mr. Henderson is clutching his chest, muttering about noise pollution and property value depreciation. Mrs. Johnson is frantically texting on her phone, probably updating her gossip network with the latest scoop. But their outrage is futile. They call an emergency HOA meeting, but it quickly descends into chaos. They try to fine me, but I hit them with my legal loopholes. They threaten to sue, but I remind them that I haven't actually broken any rules. They're frustrated. They're powerless. They're watching their carefully manicured world crumble around them. And it's glorious. This is madness, Karen shrieks, her voice echoing through the meeting room. This is anarchy. This is fun. And with that, she storms out of the room, leaving behind a trail of bewildered HOA members and a lingering scent of defeat. All right, so the HOA, bless their bureaucratic little hearts, decided to make one final stand. They called an emergency meeting, the kind where they bring out the folding chairs and the stale cookies. The atmosphere was tense, like a spaghetti western showdown, but with less tumbleweeds and more floral print blouses. Karen McGill, face pale with fury, slammed her gavel on the table. This outrageous behavior cannot stand, she declared, her voice trembling with indignation. We will not allow our peaceful community to be turned into a water park. The other board members chimed in, their voices rising in a chorus of disapproval. They threatened fines, legal action, even excommunication from the neighborhood potluck. Gasp. But I was ready for them. I stood up, armed with my trusty HOA rulebook and a stack of legal documents thicker than a phone book. Hold on a minute, I said, my voice calm and collected. Before you go throwing around threats, let's take a look at the facts. I pointed to a specific clause in the rulebook, the one about permissible landscaping projects. Nowhere does it say that I can't have a water-based landscaping project, I explained. And as for backyard entertainment, well, that's not regulated either. I then proceeded to cite local ordinances, building codes, and even a few obscure environmental laws. Thanks, Google. The HOA members looked increasingly bewildered, their faces contorted in confusion. Karen, bless her stubborn little heart, tried to argue. But the noise, the crowds, the fun, she sputtered. Well, Karen, I said, leaning forward with a smirk, it seems like you've got a choice to make. You can either embrace the fun or you can continue to fight a losing battle. What's it gonna be? The silence in the room was deafening. The HOA members looked at each other, their faces etched with a mixture of frustration and resignation. They knew they couldn't stop me. The water park was here to stay, and as I watched the defeat sink in, I couldn't help but smile. It was a glorious moment, a testament to the power of loopholes, legal knowledge, and a healthy dose of defiance. Okay, so, word got around. Fast. What started as a rebellious act of backyard defiance quickly turned into a local sensation. Kids, parents, even those teenagers who usually have their faces glued to their phones, they all flocked to my water park like moths to a very wet, very fun flame. The atmosphere was electric. Kids were screaming with joy as they zoomed down the colossus of slides, their laughter echoing through the neighborhood. Parents were lounging by the lazy river, sipping lemonade and actually having adult conversations, a rare sight in suburbia, let me tell you. And those teenagers? Well, they were busy documenting the whole thing on TikTok and Instagram, turning my backyard into a viral sensation. Suddenly, I was the coolest guy on the block. Parents were bribing me with cookies and car washes to let their kids in. Neighbors who used to give me the side eye were now waving enthusiastically and asking if I needed help cleaning the pool. The answer was always a resounding yes. Even the local news station caught wind of the commotion. They showed up with cameras and microphones, eager to capture the most ridiculous backyard in America. I gave them a tour, throwing in a few witty comments about the HOA and their aesthetic harmony obsession. The HOA, meanwhile, was becoming increasingly isolated. Their attempts to shut down the water park had backfired spectacularly. They were now seen as the grumpy old folks who hated fun, the villains in this epic tale of backyard rebellion. Karen McGill, bless her soul, tried to rally the troops. She organized protests, wrote angry letters to the editor, even attempted to start a petition to ban backyard water parks. But it was no use. The community had spoken, and they wanted fun, not fines. The HOA's popularity plummeted faster than a kid on the colossus of slides. Their meetings were sparsely attended, their pronouncements ignored. They were like a band playing to an empty stadium, their music drowned out by the joyous screams of children splashing in my wave pool. It was a beautiful thing to witness. The HOA, once the undisputed rulers of the neighborhood, were now a laughingstock. And I, the rebellious homeowner with a love of water slides, had become the champion of the people. Okay, get ready for a plot twist that'll make your head spin. Just when the HOA thought they'd reached peak levels of despair, a mysterious letter arrived. It wasn't your average piece of mail, oh no. This was a game changer. The letter was from a theme park developer, a big-shot company with deep pockets and a love for all things fun. They'd seen the news reports, the social media frenzy, the sheer audacity of my backyard water park, and they were impressed. "We'd like to offer you a sponsorship," the letter read. "We want to expand your water park, make it even bigger, even better, even more HOA infuriating." Can you believe it? My little act of rebellion had caught the attention of a major corporation. They saw the potential, the sheer brilliance of my plan, and they wanted in. The HOA, meanwhile, was stunned into silence. Their jaws dropped, their eyes glazed over, and their carefully constructed world of rules and regulations crumbled around them. They'd been outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and out-water-parked. Karen McGill, the once mighty HOA president, couldn't handle the defeat. She resigned in disgrace, her dreams of a beige-washed world shattered. I heard she moved to a retirement community where the only excitement was the occasional bingo night. The remaining HOA board members, realizing the error of their ways, did a complete 180. They embraced the water park, hailing it as a community asset and a beacon of family fun. They even organized a ribbon-cutting ceremony, complete with balloons, speeches, and awkward photo ops. And the neighborhood? Well, it was rebranded as Splash Springs Community, a testament to my victory over HOA tyranny. The once peaceful streets were now filled with the joyous sounds of splashing, laughter, and the occasional scream of excitement from the colossus of slides. It was a glorious transformation, a victory for fun, freedom, and the right to have a giant water slide in your backyard. And it all started with a pool proposal and a healthy dose of defiance.